To Celestial Circle. I'm Angie Walsh, and my co-host is with me today, Kate Robertson.
Hey, everybody.
Today we have a very special guest with us. We have a man who is a friend and who has some phenomenal information he's going to share with us today. He's an author, and I interviewed him back in 2019 when he wrote his first book, Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey. And he has something very special that he's going to share with us today, along with some other information. So if you've ever been wondering if UFOs are real, if ETs, aliens exist, all of these questions, astral travel, we have so much in store for you today. So I'd like to welcome our special guest, Kevin J. Briggs.
Well, thank you, Angie, for that introduction. Thank you, Kate, and for both of you inviting me on your show. Because without people like yourself, I can't get my message out there. And I've been asked by my ET star families to share my lifelong interaction with them and write about them. I've written the first book, Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey, and they tell me that I will write 2 books. I've actually written the second book now. Excuse me. I'm just working on the editing. So I will have achieved what they've asked me to do. So, but they continue to ask me to do other things once I've achieved something. So we'll see where the journey takes us. From the age of 8, when I had the first encounter when Orton D, the 2 Arcturians materialized in my bathroom to fight me to death at the time. But I've now had a lifelong contact with them. They've educated me in relation to consciousness and all the modalities of contact that they use as 5th dimensional beings. And the only difference between the dimensions are the vibrational frequencies at which they exist at. I know when Orton D, they've told me that I'm part of their extended family. Only my physical is in the 3rd dimension at the lower vibrations, and their physical is in the 5th dimension, and it's just that higher vibrational frequency. So we're all the same. We all share that one consciousness, and I have a larger extended family, which are the Arcturians.
So when you're talking about the 5th dimension, I think a lot of people have misconceptions about what the 5th dimension really is. Do you want to elaborate?
Okay. Well, I can explain my understanding and how it's been explained to me. All the different dimensions have a frequency, and obviously each frequency is slightly different. And the higher the frequency, the higher the dimension. So in the 3rd dimension with a lower frequency, the 5th is a higher, and then 6, 7, right? The angelic realm, which is another level, another dimension. And all the dimensions are just really dimensions or levels of consciousness themselves. And if you look at the plants, the trees, the animals, the insects, they're all conscious. They all have that conscious energy, but at a different level. And once you understand how consciousness can be used as a conduit for communication, for travel, for healing, for educating, for creation and co-creation, and you can communicate with the plants, the trees, and the animal. And but then you go to the higher levels of consciousness or the higher dimensions, where you meet the higher conscious being, like R&D or the 5th dimensional beings that I've known all my life. So it's quite common now. I meet many people. When I was a child, I was always surprised that nobody spoke about these things, about traveling outside of your body, meeting with higher conscious beings, being educated by them. So I tried to find others like me, but I wasn't able to do so. But now I've been speaking out now for about 5 years, and I meet many people. In fact, I spoke to a lady this morning, who's a friend of my mother's, and she's a starseed. She says she's got history, she's from the Pleiades system, and he has her own guides. And we have a conversation, and it's just normal for us because it's who we are.
And that's great, because this is where we're needing to be for what you're presenting with your mandated protocol that you came up with, that they told you to write, right?
Yes, correct. It started a few years ago. I was asked to contact our United Nations in relation to if our governments had a mandated protocol to receive our ET star families. So I contacted the office of Nicholas Hedman in Vienna. He's the chairman of the Outer Space Affairs Committee, and asked if there was a mandated protocol in place to receive our ET star families should they wish to contact with the United Nations. I did receive a response from his office, and he did say that at this moment in time, there is no mandated protocol to receive advanced extraterrestrials, those are his words, if they wanted to connect with the United Nations. So I wrote back and I asked how would we implement the mandated protocol to facilitate this? And he said you would have to get a member state to make that proposal to the UN, and then it could be voted upon. So that was the end of that initial attempt to see if our governments had a mandated protocol. And for what they told me at that moment in time, and it was a couple of years ago now, I can't remember the exact date, but I have it in my notes. So I left it at that. I was asked to do that by my ET star family, and I'd done that, and then that was it for probably a year, maybe a little bit longer. Again, I would have to check my notes and get the exact dates, but and then after that, they asked me again to contact the United Nations and our governments in relation to a specific date. They wanted to meet with our United Nations in New York. They said February the 1st. I think it was 2019. I'm not certain, again, without looking at my notes. And so I emailed Nicholas Hedman again in the Vienna office of the UN. And I also emailed a Dr. DiPippo in Washington, D.C. He works in the office there. So I did what they asked. I gave them the dates when the ET star families wished to meet the UN. On this occasion, I didn't receive a response. And I'm not surprised because I gave them a specific time and date. I did get an automated response from Nicholas Hedman's office to say that they had received the email. I didn't hear anything from Dr. DiPippo's office in Washington, D.C. But what was interesting about that particular action they asked me to do, about 8 days later, Terry Lovelace, who's a friend of mine, who's also a lifelong experiencer, he phoned me and said, Kevin, because I put all the information out there in the different avenues that I share the information. And he said, Kevin, I've been given the exact same time and dates that you've been given by your ET. So I said, well, I'd already written to Nicholas Hedman in Vienna at the UN there. And I'd also written to Dr. DiPippo in Washington, D.C. And he said, well, I know Dr. DiPippo. I will write to him. I will send him an email supporting your request because I've had the same information. So he did that. I've got copies of the emails that he sent. Neither of us received a response, but again, I wasn't expecting it. But it was interesting that another source had contacted Terry Lovelace in relation to the same information. So that was it then. I didn't receive any more information from the United Nations. Nobody contacted me. I say, not surprising. And then a couple of years passed since then, or maybe a year, I can't remember. I have to check my notes. I do so much stuff now, Angie, I forget the dates and things, but I have it all noted down in my files. So.
Maybe, like, I remember I met you for the first time in August or September of 2019. And I know that I was at that meeting with you and Dr. Melanie and Denise Stoner, Dr. Melanie Barton, she had brought me. And I remember you talking about this and saying that you were still kind of cryptic with it, but you you were talking about you had just, like, your book had just come out not too long. Your first book had just come out not too long before that. And so you were talking about these meetings at this meeting we were at. So
Okay, so I'm sure if I check my notes are about this thick. So I can't remember it all now, but I remember all the pertinent bits, but dates and times sometimes elude me. So, but that's why I keep the notes. So I do have them. So, and I keep obviously the records of the email things. So I have those as well. So I can substantiate what I'm saying and evidence it, as it were, in what I did and who I contacted. So let's say a while after that, then my guides, ET guides, contacted me again, and they said that obviously they'd reached out to our governments through me, and others are reaching out to our governments as well. I'm aware of a scientific group, again, a couple of years ago. They had a conference in Moscow, and it was organized by the Chinese, believe it or not. And it was the leading Chinese scientists, the leading Russian scientists, and the leading European scientists. And they had a meeting in Moscow. It was all paid for by the Chinese, the flights, the hotels for all the delegates. And I knew one of the delegates, so that's how I got all the information. And as the result of the 3-day conference was to approach the United Nations and request a mandated protocol be implemented and ratified to receive the ET star families. So they're lobbying the government. I know there's a guy in Washington, I may have moved now, Steve Bassett. He's been lobbying them for a mandated protocol for many years. So it's not just me. I'm just one of another small piece who are, and I know of another group in Canada. They've already asked the UN in Europe if they'll have a mandated protocol to receive the ET. So it's fairly common within that realm of the United Nations. And my understanding that the United Nations replied to the Canadian group in relation to they weren't prepared to implement a mandated protocol, and unless there was sufficient people that were interested in the subject, they weren't going to discuss it. It was as simple as that. So now, really, my mission is to help facilitate the reveal of the ET star family globally, to reveal their presence. So what I was asked to do by my ET star families was to write a mandated protocol for what they require. And it's very simple. It's simplistic, but I wrote it. My wife witnessed it. And then Denise Stoner, Kathleen Marden, Dr. Melanie Barton signed it and ratified it. So now we, the citizens of Earth, have a mandated protocol, which we can use. We don't have to ask the government now. They can, if they want to, they're the ones that rule the planet. But we, the citizens of Earth, now have our own implemented, ratified, mandated protocol to receive our ET star families with the information in there that they requested. So it's a co-creation of the future event using thought and consciousness, and the future event will be the reveal globally of our ET star family's presence. So quite exciting, really. I don't know whether you wanted to read out the mandated protocol or whether you just want to put it on your website. But
we're gonna display it. Kate she'll do her magic that she does with the editing, and she'll be talking, but I think it would be very powerful if you read it. And then we went into like breaking down like who the star families are, what their intentions are, and how we can reach out, because we're going to be talking to all different peoples with all different levels of consciousness that are going to be watching this. So it's important that we get the right information out.
Okay, well, I'll read the mandated protocol first then.
Okay.
It's only 2 paragraphs and it's fairly straightforward, but the words are important because I've been educated throughout my life in relation to consciousness. And my understanding is that the words themselves have an effect on our consciousness, as does music and art and colors and all that. So the people listen to the words And if anybody wants a copy of the mandated protocol, I can, if they email me, I can send them a copy. So I say it's only 2 paragraphs, so I'll read it quickly. I've titled it Mandated Protocol to Receive Our ET Star Families Ambassadors. Individuals on our planet are currently being engaged by our ET star families. Our governments are aware of this, but at this time they are not ready to receive the ambassadors. The ET star families ambassadors are requesting a mandated protocol to be ratified and implemented by the citizens of Earth to receive them. Within the mandated protocol will be provisions for the safety and security of the star families on approach to planet Earth while in our atmosphere and on the ground at a mutually agreed designated date, time, and location. When implemented, we, the citizens of Earth, can reach out with our own ambassadors for the reveal of our ET star families with a mutual exchange of cultures, technologies, and pave the way for a new society. The society we desire for our children, for our future generations. A new society we co-create with our ET star families, one that will include them. And then the second part of it is, I've titled it, Protocol for Peaceful Contact with Our ET Star Family. Creation, co-creation, intent for a mandated protocol to receive our ET Star Families ambassadors. I have been informed by my ET guides that they require a mandated protocol in place to guarantee their safety and security when invited to Earth for meetings, interactions, and cultural exchange. My ET guides also inform me that the reveal of their presence globally will come from a request from the citizens of Earth. We use thought and consciousness, intent, to create our reality. I propose, because we as exo-conscious humans have an understanding of this, we should lead the way with the intention, creation, co-creation with our ET star families ambassadors. This will be the intention of this proposed mandated protocol being co-created through thought and consciousness. Included in these thoughts will be the protection and security of the craft and their occupants approaching Earth while flying in our atmosphere, at landings, meetings at predetermined dates, times, and locations. And then the last line, in witness thereof, the undersigned being authorized by their birthright as born of this earth. And then my wife, I signed it, my wife witnessed it, and as I say, Kathleen Marden, Dr. Melanie Barton, and Denise Stoner signed and ratified it. So we now have our own mandated protocol that we can use, and there are many of us, many of the experiences here, many are able to call in the craft, many have their own telepathic communication with our ET star families. So it's another step forward in relation to the work I've been doing over the past couple of years. And I must stress that there are many others working towards this as well. It's not just me. I'm not out there on my own. There are other groups, important groups, that are working towards this.
And who are these ETs that are contacting you? If you could let our listeners know just what star families they're from.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Tensions
I can tell you a little bit about each one of them. I first met Orton D when I was 8, when they materialized in my bathroom. They are Arcturian. They look just like me and you. They're human in appearance. They are 5th dimensional, they tell me, and that just means their bodies are at a higher frequency. And they are from Andromeda, they tell me. And then I met Orton D when I was 8. And when I was 14, I used to have a paper round. And when I left the house to go and do the paper round, a UFO would appear above the home. And then a second UFO would appear, and they would both follow me around the paper round. And on one occasion, I knew there was always someone there behind the head, behind the wall or whatever. I was always sensitive to the higher vibrational frequencies. So on one occasion, I plucked up the courage and I said, I know you're there. Can you show yourself? And 2 small grey beings stepped out from behind the hedge. And I wasn't frightened. I asked them what they wanted. and they said there was a group of people that wanted to meet with me. I said, well, I've got to finish my paper round, and then I've got to go to school. And they said, well, I could finish my paper round, which I'd nearly finished anyway, and then we'll have you back in time for school. So I agreed to go with them, and I was taken to a large craft, a large mothership, I believe, because of the size of the hangar when we went into the hangar and disembarked from the small craft. I was led down into an amphitheater, and the amphitheater was full of beings, all different types, some human in appearance, other different species. And at the front of the amphitheater, there was a group of 8 beings sat there. These are the 8 beings I've had contact with all my life. And as I said, Art and Dee were the first 2 at age of 8. They were the first 2 on the end of the table, sat at the front of the amphitheater. Next was Anna. She's a small blue bird type avian being, very empathic. Zark, he was the next one. I know a little bit more about Zark because I've had a lot of interaction with him over the years, and he now interacts with my wife as well. He's an engineer, he's a mathematician, he's from the Pleiades system, he tells me. He's a small grey, he has a partner, and he has 3 offspring. But he does have a sense of humour, because I was communicating with him telepathically once, and when I communicate telepathically, I get the visual appearance of who I'm talking to. I can see the faces, and I cracked a joke, and he laughed, and I felt his emotion of the laughter, and that was the first time I had contact of emotion through telepathic communication. So that was quite interesting. And he also moved my wife's personal items around the house. And I asked him why he did that. And he said he liked teasing her. He thought it was funny, but there was a serious side to let her know that we are here, we are amongst you. And say, my wife will put something down and he'll pick it up and move it somewhere else. Or she'll go and close the blinds, and she'll turn around and he'll open the blinds. So he's always about us. He's always here interacting with us, which is good. I'm part of their extended family, so I'm happy with that. It's part of my reality. It's part of my wife Sandy's reality. And then the next guy was sat on the table was Ra. He's very old. He's Anunnaki. He's very powerful being. His energy was tremendous. He tells me he's over 5,000 years old. So he goes back a long time. But he's a higher dimensional being. He tells me he's 9th dimensional, and he's able to incarnate at will, and he moves between the dimensions and incarnates at will. And I've had quite a bit of interaction with him. And when he comes through, the energy is just absolutely tremendous. And then the next one on the table was Targ. He's a tall grey. I'm not certain which star system he's from. He hasn't told me, but he tells me he's responsible for the not only the security of this group of Council of 8, as I've come to know them, but for the security of this quadrant of the galaxy. And I hadn't thought about the galaxy being separated into different quadrants. And then the next one was Chica. I was a little bit perturbed by Chica because he was like a large grasshopper. He's a mantis being. In fact, if anybody's seen our small insect mantis beings, he looked just like that, but he was 6 foot tall. Again, very old, very wise being. He doesn't have much of a sense of humor. So I cracked a joke with him at one time, and he wasn't impressed. So, and then the lastly was Orla. She's a tall white. She's an astrobiologist, she tells me, and I haven't asked her what star system she's from. I suppose I could do, but so that's the group of 8. And when I was initially introduced to them when I was 14, and this is a physical introduction, not traveling outside of the body, I thought I was just there as the human specimen to be paraded. And I clearly understand that's not the case now. They are a galactic council, shall we say, just like we would have with our United Nations meeting, or our governments or our congresses meeting. They meet formally, where they have the delegates sometimes on the front stage, and the rest of the delegates are sat in the audience in the amphitheater. And it was really an introduction for me to them and them to me. So, and now, as I say, I still have contact with all 8 of these beings all my life, and they've guided me and taught me and shown me many things. And obviously the latest thing is this mandated protocol, which we now have implemented and ratified, so we can move forward now. And hopefully the culmination in my lifelong education and interaction will be that of the reveal itself, the reveal globally of the presence of our ET starfighters.
So the 8 beings on the council, they're basically, like you were saying with the United Nations, there's all these different countries that come, so everybody looks different. They have different, so these 8 beings, they're from 8 different star families. Is that how that works?
I would say so. I know all the are obviously from Andromeda. I know that Zark is from the Pleiades system. I don't know where the others are from, but I would have to ask them. I would suspect. I know they're all in the 5th dimension, apart from Ra. He's in the 9th dimension. So yeah, it's a combination of species from different galactic areas and different levels of consciousness, and we're part of that. But we don't realize that. We're just at a lower vibrational frequency. And if we can raise our vibrational frequency, as they have done with me, then I'm able to communicate with all the modalities of contact that they use in the 5th dimension. And I realize that they've done that with me. I'm now a messenger for them, an intermediary, shall we say. And that's why they've educated me to a level of understanding the consciousness. And again, I can say, because it can be used for communication, telepathic communication, for travel, out-of-body travel, for healing. We can heal ourselves. We can ask others to heal us using thought and consciousness. Education, they've educated me with thought and consciousness, with experiences. They didn't sit me down in the classroom. They gave me an experience, and the experience was the lesson which I learned for. And then the creation, we create using thought and consciousness. We create our reality. And then co-creation, which is the important part with this mandated protocol. I am now co-creating with our ET star families a future event. And because I've been educated and guided all my life, I have an understanding of the power of creation, of co-creation, creating that future. So we are just really co-creating a future event.
So what I want everybody to, Kevin just said a lot of really important things. And a lot of times, Kevin, when you're talking, like your accent, I just get real relaxed when I'm listening to you. So I just want to reiterate what you just said, because the things that you said are very important about how we can heal ourselves, how we create things, how we're able to talk telepathically, our consciousness. We're all one in this consciousness, and we have the ability to raise this consciousness, not only within ourselves, but worldwide. And so all of this stuff is fascinating. A lot of people that are watching are probably thinking, how can I talk telepathically? How can I reach this level of consciousness? How do I raise my vibration? There's a lot of different, I'm going to let you talk. I can talk all day about how to do it, but I want you to say.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating, really, because within our culture, I meet a lot of people now, and I meet a lot of experiences who use telepathic communication. It's normal for them. I've learned to be confident and comfortable with telepathic communication because I've used it all my life. When Orton D materialized in the bathroom, they were speaking telepathically to one another. And as a child, I was able to understand that. And I believe that all children have that ability, but our society doesn't allow it to develop. So we lose the ability. Because whenever I was given information, I would ask for confirmation. And I still do that to this day. Say, on one occasion, I mentioned about that information about the UN. I was woken up at 1:11 a.m. on February the 1st and given a telepathic communication in relation to that event. So I got out of bed, I walked into my bathroom, and from my bathroom, I can see the street light there. So I repeated the message back to them telepathically. and I said, can you confirm this information has come from you, and turn the street light off? And the street light went off immediately. So that's confirmation of the telepathic communication. And then I went back to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning. Physically, 2 people jumped on my bed. I couldn't see anybody, but they bounced on my bed. I thought my dogs had come in to the bedroom and jumped on the bed, but it wasn't. They woke me up. They gave me the second part of the telepathic communication. At this time, it's daylight. And so I walk into the bathroom. I repeat the whole message back to them telepathically through the first part and the second part. And then I said, now can you confirm this information has come from you, and turn the street light on? And the street light came on immediately. So if you do that all your life with that type of communication, you become comfortable with it, and you trust the communication. Even now I get downloads occasionally. If people don't know what a download is, it's a download of information that comes in an instant. And very often you may not have an understanding of the download. As with on one occasion, I was just sat by my pool. I was given some information about the quantum unified field theory and some extra information. And I said, look, you've just given me all this information about quantum unified field theory, which I know nothing about. Can you show me a craft to confirm the information has come from you and it's not just my own imagination? A craft appeared. Can you show me a craft? A craft appeared immediately outside the pool cage area. I went inside to get my wife, Sandy. I said, Sandy, can you come out? There's a craft here and have a look at it. She came out. We went outside the pool cage area, and a second, third, 4, 5, 7 craft in total appeared. And then they moved slowly and silently over our heads, changed direction about 80 degrees, and then disappeared sequentially as they had arrived. So that was confirmation of that particular download. And then I had another one about the theory of everything. And again, I didn't know anything about that. I do now because I've looked into it, and the information they gave me, it gives me an understanding, and I can talk about it to our scientists if I need to. But on that occasion, I said, look, you've just given me all this information again about the theory of everything, and I'm not aware of this. Can you show me a craft to let me know that the information has come from you? And the craft appeared immediately outside of the pool cage, and it flashed 1, 2, 3 times. So that was confirmation. And when you do that all your life, you become comfortable with it. So that's really your downloads, telepathic communication, and that's what they use. Their higher level of consciousness in the 5th dimension, they use telepathic communication.
And that's so important. You spoke about the fact that as children, we often know how to do these things, and we lose that ability through conditioning and, parents telling us certain things aren't true and whatnot. But would you agree that it's important that we allow our children to explore these avenues going forward in our growth and evolution?
Yes, yeah, without a doubt. And I'm sure, in fact, I was speaking to someone just the other day, and she was talking about her twins. She had twins, and they spoke telepathically when they were in the womb together. And then, obviously, when they were born, one of the girls was speaking, did all the talking, and the other girl just got up and moved around, and they did what they wanted to do together. And her mother asked her, said, how do you know what, I can't remember her name now, how do you know what, say, Shirley's doing? Oh, well, I know what she's thinking. So they were still communicating telepathically as young children. And if that's encouraged, you can continue that and get to the level of telepathic communication I have with the higher conscious beings. It's just opening up the mind. But our culture stops that particular development of who we are as a species.
I know. Okay, so I know we talked about this yesterday when we were talking. I told you guys how I did with my kids, but my mom was always open to me too as a child, because I've always, like Kevin, I've been like you, where I've been able to speak telepathically, and I've been getting stronger with it with other people, because sometimes Kate will hear me or my mom hears me, like, if this is bad, now everybody's gonna know what I do, but like sometimes I'm on the phone and I just need a break. So I'll like put out a message, somebody please call me now, and like the other day my son heard me and he called in, and I'd been waiting to hear from him anyway, but like I had put that, I call it the bat signal, but I put that out there. And so Kate had heard it, but she's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to. She was doing, I was in the middle of something, but I was needing an escape route. I don't always do that, but there's just sometimes where it's too much. So
yeah, I'm sure we all have experiences of that, but we don't always identify with it. I know on many occasions, I'm very close to my brother Michael, and many occasions I think, oh, I'll phone my brother. And so I phone him, and the phone's engaged because he's phoning me, and that's happened I don't know how many times. So I only have to think about him and he'll contact me, or vice versa. I'll think in the morning, I'll contact Michael in about 10 minutes. I'll just finish this. And before I finish what I'm doing, he phones me, So it's, but to have that phone call when you phone him and he's phoning you, I mean, what a connection that is. It's just tremendous, really. In fact, I have an excellent story, if you've got time, regarding my brother, Michael, who's a retired aircraft engineer. He had his own business, very successful. I'm very proud of my brother. And he when he retired a few years ago, he moved down to Spain, and he went to a place overlooking the Mediterranean. He gets some nice views, elevated in the hillside there. And he said to me one day, Kevin, you should see the magnificent butterflies they have here in Spain. They said they're huge. Because obviously he lived in the UK. We do have butterflies there, but not as big as they are in Spain. And I said to him, well, why don't you go out onto your balcony? Because you've got a nice balcony that overlooks the Mediterranean. And when the butterfly comes past, ask it to come and land on your hand. And he's been a nuts and bolts man, an engineer man. He said, it won't do that. I said, well, why don't you go out and try it? So he said he would. And but I said, you'll need a reason. You'll have to ask the butterfly that you want it to come and land on your hand so that you can see the beautiful colors on its wings. So he held his hand out, and I got photographs of this because I was on the phone to him, and we took photographs. And the butterfly came past, he asked it, it went out of sight, it came back and landed on his fingers. He was amazed. I said, right, now what you need to do, you need to ask it to fly away and come back with a friend. And bearing in mind, he'd been there 3 years. And but I said, you need to give it a reason. And the reason is you obviously thank it for coming and landing on your hand. And then you want to compare the colors on a friend's wings. So he asked it, it took off, it went out of sight, it came back, it landed on his fingers, and it brought a friend with him, and it landed on his forehead. And I got photographs of this, and he was just amazed. And that day he had 14 landings of butterflies on him, because that was a lesson in communication, using thought and consciousness with the nature side of who we are. But then a couple of days later, he said to his wife, come outside onto the balcony and I'll ask the butterflies to come and land on you so you can see the colors on their wings. And I've got photographs. The butterflies came, she's holding her arm out, and there's butterflies landing on her arm. So that's a simple example of using consciousness, for communication and for education. Because while he was doing that, and his wife had the experience, they are learning, they are being educated. I now call him the butterfly whisperer, but now he's got the large birds circling around and the seagulls and things. So once you make that connection and have that understanding of consciousness, then it opens up a whole new reality. I mean, I've been brought up with it, so I'm very comfortable with it, but you can start learning at any age, and it doesn't really matter because all the information is already there. We have to access it.
Be sure to join us next week with the extraordinary author and experiencer Kevin J Briggs of Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey. We're going to talk about UFOs, ETs, spiritual consciousness, and so much more. You're not going to want to miss this. You can catch us right here on Celeste Circle YouTube channel. Or you can go to our podcast and listen if you prefer. Also, Celeste Circle. Available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Anchor.fm, and more. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure you hit that bell notification so that you get notified whenever we upload a new episode. So until next time, thanks for watching and listening. We'll catch you around the bonfire. Don't forget the marshmallows.